Get it from me first. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel, airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review our show. William Liu mysteriously taking a sick day with the weather outside like it is today, with the Raptors on their first 3-game losing streak of the season. So I'm your host, Alex Wong, filling in today, coming off the bench like Udonis Haslem. And thankfully, I'm joined in studio by Sportsnet Raptors sideline reporter Savannah Hamilton. Savannah, how are you?
Always a pleasure to be next to you on this non-COVID related illness sick day that Will's taking.
Yes,
Hope Will's listening to this.
Will's definitely listening, probably in the YouTube comments right now, as he does. But yeah, you know, Toronto Raptors, unfortunately, another loss.
Yep.
124-123 last night to the Sacramento Kings. Thought they got off to a really good start there in the first half, built a double-digit lead. Looked like might be one of those nights, you know, the Kings are on a second half of a back-to-back. Maybe the Raptors just get right for one night. Fred was playing really well throughout. You know, Scotty had 27 points, 7 rebounds, 10 assists, and, you know, they lost again.
So
they lost again. Yeah.
So they did. I know it was such a, I don't want to say wasted because then it doesn't, you know, it doesn't do it justice, but it felt like a wasted performance from Van Vliet and Scotty. Like, they both played their hearts out there. You could tell that they really wanted to win that one. They wanted to bounce back from Orlando, those 2 losses that they know they shouldn't have lost to. But you know what? Like, the Kings, like, one, tip your hat to them. They've really turned their whole, you know, franchise around really this season. You know, I did talk to, Fox, you know, and De'Aaron Fox, and he was just kind of telling me that they just improved on talent so much this season. He's like, I don't want to slight, you know, the previous, like, teams and franchises, whatever, but, you know, bringing in Mike Brown, they've built a new defensive identity. And he also told me that Mike Brown also brought in the Warriors offense, which increased shooting in just their offensive schemes as a whole. So that's why they have one of the best offenses in the league right now. And that's really hard to contain for a Raptors team that is without OG Anunoby right now. But man, yeah, it stung. It definitely stung, especially by 1 point. You couldn't even get it to overtime. Like, yeah.
Yeah. You know, they had a couple chances there in the last minute. I know Scotty forced a turnover, and I think was looking to throw a look-ahead pass. I think Fred was probably breaking out, and that was a turnover. And on the last play of the game, when they needed a 3 to tie, you know, Fred, you know, probably pushed off a little bit there, you know, but nobody saw it and had found himself wide open. And again, it's tough in that scenario when the clock is ticking down. Like, he probably had time to, like, even maybe take a dribble, you know, relocate, but he was, you know, wasn't kind of like a standstill shot for him, but still a very clean look, wasn't able to make it. And that was part of the problem and continues to be a problem for the Toronto Raptors, right? Second straight game that they've only made 6 3-pointers. And, you know, a friend of the program, Oren Weisfeld, pointed out that the Raptors bench has not hit a 3 in the last 2 games. And, you know, you were there post-game. You know, Fred was asked about a lot of this stuff. And, you know, one of the things that he was asked about was just the 21 attempts from 3, right? Because you look at the modern-day game, not a lot of teams, first of all, you're not winning a lot of games when you're hitting 6 threes. And also, you're not winning a lot of games when you're only shooting 21.
Yep.
Like, a lot of teams are in the 30s and the 40s right now.
Yep.
And Fred was asked whether, you know, maybe that has to change as well, right? Like, even though you're not shooting well, you're going to still need to, you know, focus your offense and design it in a way where you are getting more looks from 3.
I think this might be I don't want to say a causation, but, like, there's something to be said about, okay, the focus was to build length on this roster and athleticism, but the focus wasn't necessarily solely on 3-point shooting. And in a league where, thanks to the Golden State Warriors, they completely changed the game and made it only about 3-point shooting, it's almost like you have to have a shooter on the team. And unfortunately, like, you know, best shoot. Like the Raptors were getting by without one pretty much last year. You know, and then you see, you know, Fred, you know, hitting his threes. He's now at like a career low in shooting threes right now.
Yeah. 2 of 8 last night.
Yeah. And here's the thing is that like everything that we're saying, they know. Like they know that they're in this, I will call it a slump, but you know, something has to be done, whether it's more reps in the gym, shooting out of it. They're getting really great looks. And I think that's where the issue really lies. And this is the part where, like I said, that they do know, because it's not like they're contested threes. Some of them are wide open with, I'm counting 3 seconds of time at least, which is more than enough time. Because, I mean, just look at OG's shot back in the bubble when he hit that shot. It was like, what was that, like 0.5 or something?
Yeah.
Like, you could get a shot off in like less than a second. So when you have 3 seconds, that's like all the time in the world. And so, unfortunately, like, there has to be a cutoff time where something has to be done. And I mean, that's not up to me to say or speculate, but there's definitely some interesting issues that the Raptors are dealing with right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a conversation we've been having here on the show this week a lot with a lot of different people too, is that kind of the short term and long term look at this team, right? Like short term, like you said, you can say that they're in a shooting slump. You can pull up their career 3-point percentages, and you can look at someone like Fred clearly, and even Gary, and you can go down the roster and say that, hey, maybe some of that will normalize, right? Like maybe they're just in a slump. But I think the bigger question, the one that people are more interested in, is whether, you know, the roster construction is flawed, in that they do need to make the changes, and they do need to bring in more shooting. They do need to fix the center position, right? Like when you're looking at this team, and listen, everybody's frustrated right now. And like you said, I think it's, you know, the players and coaches are probably more frustrated than us and the fans, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they want to win.
Yeah. Listen, it's just not a good product right now to watch, right? I think it's super frustrating for everybody. And I think that's the question I would pose to you, is like, when you look at the way that they've constructed this roster, and now you look at the way that they're playing, like, do you think it is time for the front office to think about, you know, making changes and, you know, altering their roster construction plans?
So when I think about what the front office's like decision-making status is right now, right? They're in a position where I think regardless, even if the Raptors were playing amazing basketball right now, they would still potentially have to make a change just by contracts, the way that the contracts are set up right now. Because, you know, there's a lot of, you know, free agents and bigger guys asking for more money come off season already. So you're already in a position where, you know, it's almost, you got to bring in a big piece to, I don't want to say like a Kawhi, but almost like that same Kawhi transaction to potentially try to see how far you can go in the playoffs this year. Or you're going to have to scale back or kind of rethink the roster regardless. And I'm saying that if they're playing amazing basketball, regardless. So now that they're not playing amazing basketball right now, we could call it for what it is. They're under 500. And they were not expected to be under 500, that's for sure. I personally had them in the top 5 in the East. And let's scale back for 1 second. Let's talk about the injuries that they faced earlier this season. That certainly did not help, because it almost feels like all the chaos happened after Pascal's injury.
Sure.
Like he got out and all of a sudden they got out of sync, and the chemistry just didn't feel the same when he came back. And I think that's because guys' roles were changing. Like you saw OG taking more of that offensive leadership as well as the defensive leadership. So he was working on overtime over here. So you know what? Good for him for taking a few games off. I'm sure he kind of needs it. But then on top of that, like you think about just the other guys having to, you know, we had a Delano Banton game in the meantime. So we had these different figures kind of like stepping up where they could. And now that Pascal's back, Fred's back, everybody is like trying to find their rhythm again. And then you can't also expect, and this is where I have a very empathetic point of like maybe coming from a player perspective, that you just can't expect to step back into a game and be immediately back into rhythm. You know, like that's very difficult to do. And I think we saw that with Juancho last night too. Like Juancho came back, you know, even Coach Nick Nurse, he said he's ready to let Juancho rip. He got the whole, you know, media laughing before the game. And and then Wancho comes in and he's 0 for 3 from 3 in the first half. And I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but I noticed that he didn't even attempt any more threes in the second half.
Mhm.
He was I could tell just like he looked like he was down on himself for just missing. And there are good open threes too, right? But it's like one of those things that you can't hang your head on. So you're taking the injuries, you're taking the comebacks, and you're piling them up into this, I know, quarter to almost a third mark of the season. And you're making your judgments off of this right now. I would have liked to, I think that they have to have a little bit more grace before, and I'm by grace, I think 10 games before making some bigger calls.
Okay. No, I think that's fair. I think it's too. There's a lot of frustration from the fans because they're clearly seeing the same problems play out, right?
Yeah.
And then like the 3-point shooting we talked about, and even the defense, right?
But when have they ever been a good 3-point shooting team?
I know, but that's the problem though.
But like I'm talking in franchise history, when have they ever been a good 3-point shooting team?
But at some point, I feel like you just have to look at the results, right? Like when you're a 13 and 15 team,
yeah,
right? Like you can win in different ways, and I think they're trying to win in this different way, and they've tried to be innovative with the way that they're constructing the roster, right?
For sure.
I'm totally with you on just a bit more patience.
Yeah,
and I think sometimes that's hard. I always tell Will like our show should be weekly. Because, like, since we're doing, my employers...
You just don't want to work too much.
Well, my employers disagree, but, like, when you're reacting to all the games and when you're talking about this stuff daily, like, it is frustrating, right? When you're breaking them down game to game. You talk about the 3-point shooting. I think Fred and Scotty talked about this after the game, too, as well, about the defense. Just the inconsistency, right? Because it seemed like, they had the Kings in a very good position there in the first half when they were up double digits. And then, they ended up letting the Kings score 124 points in the game.
Yeah, I know. The Raptors were up by 16 at one point. But the way that they even got that 16, it wasn't by the three, I'll tell you that much. The way that they got up on that 16 was because they were stopping the Kings' defensive transition, on defense. So, they stopped like their fast-paced offense, while at the same time they were coming back and attacking them in the paint and making the extra pass. And then they kind of got away from that. So they kind of took the gas off of the defense. So they went on for a stretch. And then at one point, it looked like a little bit of messy basketball in the fact that, like, the Raptors would get a steal on one end. And then this is the second half. Raptors would get a steal on one hand. And then the other end, Kings would force a turnover for the Raptors. And it's kind of funny because I think the thing that goes overlooked in this game is the fact that in the first half, the Raptors had 0 turnovers. And the Kings still cut it to 3 points. So at that point, you're like, okay, what do you do? Fred VanVleet's hot. Pascal's actually having a pretty decent game. We didn't talk about Pascal's game that much. And then Scotty's also having a great performance as well. But, you're only up by 3 at the half with 0 turnovers.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's a sign of a 500 team, man. I feel like every night it's something. It's every night something with this team right now. But I'm with you with the grace period too. And then, I think Joseph Kachara from The Score pointed this out too yesterday, is that as much frustration there is with the team right now, like you do have to take a step back and recognize that, they have most of their draft picks moving forward. They still have this very young core, all the frustration about how Scotty's been performing in year 2, like he is coming off the Rookie of the Year season, and you do have to give him time to develop. Pascal is an all-NBA player.
Yep.
Fred was an all-star last season.
Yep.
We've seen OG make the leap, right? And, this is not trying to sell people on the fact that everything is good with the Raptors right now.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting to me. I think about that core 4 that I just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Like Fred, Pascal, OG, and Scotty. Thinking back to like last year and this year, like we never really have seen them play together in a stretch because Pascal was not in the lineup at the start of last season because of injury. And even at that point, like OG was not the player that he is now. Scotty was not Rookie of the Year like in the first month. Like he picked it up as he went on during the season. I know he had some great performance early on. And then towards the end of the season when Pascal was playing at the All-NBA level, Fred was dealing with injuries. Right? And I know OG was dealing with injuries for a stretch too, right? And then you look at it this season as well. You mentioned they start the season, everybody's healthy. Pascal's out. Right. And now, Fred is slumping. OG is out. Scotty is struggling. So I think it's a tougher decision for the front office than most people saying just that, hey, let's just make a move, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's just make a move.
Yeah.
Because we know this front office, especially with Masai, has been really patient.
Oh, they're super patient.
And they believe in their players a lot, right? Because they spend so much time into developing them, getting to know them, getting them into the system. So, I guess I'm just presenting the other side.
Well, here's another point to the other side as well. And, I'm going to pick your basketball brain on this one for
please
sure.
don't do that. Yeah.
No, I'm going to
We're
definitely
going to have to get Will on the line here. Yeah.
When was the last time we had this strong of a core four outside of the 2019 championship team?
Yeah, I think it's fair. Like when you look at the Kyle and DeMar teams, like
Kyle, DeMar, and then who else?
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like they were the guys that were really the engines pushing them, right? And you had a lot of complementary players around them.
Even the Chris Bosh era, who else?
Yeah. No, I think it's fair. I think the biggest concerns for people is whether, because you look at how many minutes Fred played last year and has been playing this season.
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't that long ago that we were coming into training camp and on media day, all the talk was getting Fred off ball. And he was off ball for a little bit. And then obviously the injury to Pascal and all this other stuff changed the equation. And now it's just back to Fred playing 40 minutes a night, right?
Yeah. I mean, he was actually playing some heavier minutes, even in the beginning of the season. I don't know if he really...
Yeah, but it's like...
Listen, but the type of game, I hear you.
Yeah. It's like 36 minutes is not always the same across different games, right?
I agree, yeah.
Like when you've got the ball in your hands all the time, when when Pascal's sitting, you got to be the number one option and all of this stuff. I think there is legitimate concerns from fans about just the long-term like health of Fred, right? I think that's a big concern. There's not really a lot of concerns about Pascal. Like, I think if you're just looking at it last night's game, I know he kind of just missed a lot of shots that he usually makes, but like no complaints about what Pascal's been doing this season.
No. No.
And even OG, right? Like
OG's playing so well.
OG's a top defensive player of the year candidate.
Sorry, I don't want me to cut
No, please cut me off anytime.
All right, I will. I'll take that as my green light.
Take over the show, please.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this is now the Savannah Hamilton show.
Please. Please. We can rebrand the logo and everything.
The Raptors show with Savannah Hamilton. Bye, Will. This is what happens when Will takes a sick day.
Can't believe Will called in sick. Will, you better be here tomorrow, bro.
For real.
Actually, don't come in if you're sick, please.
Yeah, please don't.
I'll just call Andy
spread
Lou.
that.
But yeah, go ahead.
So, okay, hear me out. OG Anunoby, he is obviously a top candidate for Defensive Player of the Year.
Sure.
In all seriousness, does that make him to at least in the conversation of All-Star?
Yeah, but I think you got to get into two factors: games played, right, because of injuries, and just where the team is at.
Okay, so then there's also this piece.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, let's play the hypothetical role.
Okay. Yeah.
If Raptors were top 4 in the East, and
it's hard to see that right now.
Shh.
Okay.
Grace,
Okay.
Grace, patience.
All right.
If Raptors got themselves to a top 4 position, and we could potentially send 2 All-Stars to a game, who on this team are you sending to the All-Star game?
I mean, I think Pascal is clearly an All-Star.
Pascal's definitely an All-Star.
And then I think OG would be the second
Probably the
person.
next bet.
Yeah, I think.
I want to start this OG All-Star conversation
listen,
they get up to that rank.
Listen, we playing the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow at home. Somehow already the 4th and final matchup of the season against Brooklyn. And I'm just looking at the standings right now, and we're going to talk about the parity in the league a little bit later, but Raptors are only like 3 games out in the loss column for 4th place.
No, exactly. That's why I'm like,
but they got to start winning games.
They have to start winning games, but the East is tight.
And the schedule is getting tough.
And it's because they're playing teams above 500 for the next 12 games or something like that.
Listen, all respects to Orlando, and I think Sacramento's a great story. But if you think you're going to do anything this season, you should not be losing to these teams.
Grace.
No.
We're going to practice the front office level of patience.
Well, listen, I think that's the thing. I think it's 2 separate conversations too when you're talking about whether the front office should make moves.
Yeah.
Because there's people who want to make moves within the core 4 that we talked about, right?
Yes.
And then there's a separate conversation about adding pieces to complement those 4 players.
You know where Scotty's at right now, in my opinion? He is in the same boat as where Pascal was when he was playing in Tampa.
Okay.
Just a little bit lost in his game, but that does not make him a bad player whatsoever.
Yeah.
I do think that making any moves, because I've heard Scotty's name come up a bunch of times. I've heard people talk about like, oh, remember when they were talking about KD for Scotty?
Yeah, I think that was me. I've been saying that around the arena a lot.
Yes, you. No,
we
okay.
can have that conversation anytime, by the way. By the way, I cannot believe, and this is no slight towards Scotty, and like I can't believe during the summer, whenever KD's name came up linked to like any teams, like so many fan bases were like, we don't want KD.
Oh, I know, it's crazy.
Like I'm not gonna trade, like Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton, and even like
KD's still an amazing player.
No
guys.
disrespect to Scotty too. Like I think I was one of the people that was like, it's Kevin Durant. Like you got to think about this real hard.
Yeah, I was.
Like, it's
I
Kevin
was
Durant.
on the Scotty train, and I still am on the Scotty train.
Sure,
but like I'm like, like I said, he is in his second year, and I think if he gets past this year, I honestly think his third year or even the second half of this season will be a turnaround point for him again.
No,
luckily it's not a Tampa season, right? At the end of the day, they're doing better than I haven't checked the Tampa record, but I'm sure they're doing better than Tampa. So, that's where I'm placing him right now, and I'm thinking, this is Scotty's our long-term investment, right? And like literal investments and stuff like that, it dips. Like you have stocks going higher and lower. This is getting deep now.
We're talking crypto.
We're talking money now. We're talking crypto. No, we don't want to talk crypto.
Oh yeah,
because that stuff is done.
Right.
But in terms of like your investment with Scotty, like okay, it's dipping a little bit right now. In fact, but you still see some spikes. Obviously, like his game last night was like that promising. And when it comes with maturity, comes consistency, and with consistency comes leadership. And I think he will get there. I don't think he's going to be like, the go-to guy this season. I think that's pretty obvious who our go-to guys are right now between Fred, Pascal, OG. But will he be there next season and season after? Yes, I think so. And he also loves Toronto. So you want to keep a player like that around.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to hear some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Just to be patient. It is very frustrating in the moment. And I think, the Pascal Tampa example is really good. Because if you look back at the way that, we all talked about Pascal too, right? Like coming off his bubble performance and Tampa and stuff. Yeah. And I'll look at it. He's a non-conversation now.
Exactly. Now it's like, so we're keeping Pascal. He's not going anywhere. Exactly.
Yeah. But I do think I am on the side of, even if you are deciding that you feel good about these 4 players that you're building around, like I do think they need to make some changes. Like they just got to bring in some shooting. All the stuff that we've talked about.
The way that the Raptors make changes, though, they're very like intentional and they're very smart about it. We know that. Like they brought in Thad for like, was it picks and like cash or something like that?
Yeah. So they sent Goran to San Antonio.
That's right. And Goran, yes.
And then they basically,
who wasn't even playing really anyway.
They basically dropped out of the late first round and got into the early second round and drafted Christian Koloko,
which is Koloko actually probably could have been a late first round pick.
If you ask the Raptors, scouting team, I'm sure they were like, yeah, we probably had him on the board as like a late first rounder or something.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not like they lost value there.
No.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like it would be very uncharacteristic of this front office to like just blow it up and make like 3 major moves. But you think about like Gary's contract situation and you talked about like not everyone here is going to get paid when their contracts are up, right? So those decisions are coming.
Yep.
And maybe they're being pushed because like that's the other thing. Like I've been reading a lot of stuff like Zach Lowe from ESPN, said last week that rival execs are monitoring the Raptors.
I did notice that.
Right?
Which
they're monitoring
they should
the Raptors.
Yeah.
Because he said, quote, Masai Ujiri is known for taking big swings when things aren't going how he wants on the floor. And, I think Michael Grange also of Sportsnet, he reported earlier this week that the Raptors are said to be making calls with some more urgency than would otherwise be expected from a management group that tries to keep things low key. So you're starting to hear more about the Raptors being, more active in the trade market. And I know the December 15th date means that more players are now to be available, to be traded. Still a couple months away from the trade deadline, but I would imagine, as much as we're talking about all this stuff right now, they're going through every permutation.
Can you imagine we get Jakob back?
Yeah, I mean, that's been a big talk. Like,
that's been a big talk,
how do you feel about, having, like, what problems do you think Jakob Poeltl would solve for this team if we were to come back? Yeah.
He's like 7 foot. Right? He's like.
Just filling that center position.
Exactly.
Right?
But with experience. And that's the difference with him and Christian, right? Christian, he was a great draft pick. And I do think that Christian's going to be a pretty solid player in like the future. He's just a rookie. He's just making some mistakes.
No, listen. Christian's being put in a tough position.
He really
right now
is.
because he's really a player that should be either on the Raptors 905.
Yep.
Or a rookie player on a team without any expectations, where he would be allowed to make mistakes like this.
And that was the original conversation when they actually first drafted him. Because I remember on draft night that Nurse talked about putting Christian in the 905 for a little bit. And it did make sense to everyone's like, yeah, that makes sense. He's a second-round pick. He's a diamond in the rough. That means you just got to sharpen him a little bit. But now here he is like, oh, actually, never mind. You're starting. And, he's I talked to Christian and he's like, super good about it. He's happy that the coaching staff and his teammates, they trust him in that position. And he's also getting a ton of mentorship. And he's very receptive, actually, to mentorship as well. I'll say that about his character. From Thad, from Kem. But yeah, he's still and he knows it. He still has a ways to go before he's that big dominant force in the league. And that even just means even on a solely like a physicality level too, right? Like you see him getting pushed around a little bit and he's a slim build, but that doesn't mean that, slim doesn't mean that you're not strong. And I think there's some more weight room additions and some NBA nutrition to be had to get him in that really firm position where, he could probably start bodying guys in the future, but that year is not this season.
Yeah, that's the other thing that the front office needs to ask itself, right? Because I think winning 48 games last season clearly raised the expectations. I think both externally and internally. I think there were a lot of expectations for the Raptors to either maintain that pace or even take another step. And, if you were to, if I were to take your optimistic view and be more patient and have more grace and stuff, you would say that, hey, the Raptors are still in a development phase, right? Like they're still building their team. So when you're thinking about making moves, are you thinking about adding to the team where you're able to raise the ceiling of the team just for this season? Or are you willing to go through these growing pains, right? With Scotty, think about the injuries and stuff and be patient and see where this group can go.
What is the goal? Is the question.
Of course.
What is the goal?
Masai always says it. He slaps this on the Noah scoreboard there. It just says win, right?
Win.
He's talked about the play-in and stuff, and that's where the Raptors are at right now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of strange too. Like I hear people talking about if the Raptors are struggling, maybe they should start tanking now, right? And like you talked about how bunched up the standings are. Like Raptors right now, they're 13 and 15, so that would put them 10th, so that they're in the play-in tournament spot. And it's just not that easy to tank because, like,
they literally win one game.
Yeah,
they're 8th.
No, I did some math on this. My parents would be proud. Like, so the Charlotte Hornets are 7 and 21. They're the last place in the East right now, right? So let's generously say that they play like 400 basketball the rest of the way, right? So they win 40% of the games the rest of the way. If they win 40% rest of the way, they would finish with a 28 and 54 record. Okay. The Raptors would have to go 15 and 39 the rest of the way just to tie them. Like it's not easy because of the parity. Like it's too late already for the Raptors to really get into the draft lottery conversation. Not that I'm actually entertaining that. The Raptors aren't gonna be.
I was gonna say that.
I'm not entertaining that. But like,
I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's not happening. The Raptors, as bad as they're playing right now, there's too much talent on this team for them to be like a 15-game losing streak.
No, that's why it's like take. And first of all, back to your optimistic conversation. Optimists tend to live longer.
Oh, okay.
So there's some life advice for you.
I got to start doing that.
Yeah, there you go. But between the fact that this core four is probably the most talented core four that we've had, period, with some young prospects that are definitely coming up on their way, we will be realistic in both senses of you're not tanking, you're not getting Victor Wembanyama, sorry, you're too late for that. That ship has sailed. Where's Magic at? Magic better watch it. They might they might be out of that conversation if they keep playing the way that they be playing against the Raptors.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There's like 12 teams, I would say, that are probably going to be in this like playoff play-in conversation. And even Orlando's playing a little better now.
They are.
Right? Like they've won 4 in a row, I think.
Yeah.
Beat the Raptors twice, obviously. Yeah, Bol-Bol's on.
What the heck?
Why didn't we get Bol-Bol?
Why? Bol-Bol's also from Oregon. And him and Boucher, same build.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it's tough. It'd be tough for Masai to look at the standings because you can't drop that far.
No.
And, if you keep losing, you're just going to be squarely in the play-in. You're really going to squarely just be in the play-in.
See, the issue, and this is where you don't want to be in the league, you don't want to be in no man's land.
Mhm.
Like you kind of want to be either at the bottom
Yeah.
or you want to be at the
But
top.
it's hard right now in this league because a lot of teams are in the middle.
Out that literally, we could count the teams in the middle.
Yeah.
Like
This is the biggest middle
it
that I
is.
think no, I think we've seen. No, I was reading this article from Howard Beck of SI, and I think he put this out last Friday. He said as of last Friday, 17 of the league's 30 teams were within 3 games of 500.
Yeah,
And that's the most in NBA history through a quarter of the season per league official. So we're actually watching
yeah,
like the biggest parity that like we've seen.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but then all the more to like, I mean, I don't, I leave it to Masai to make the big calls. I don't get paid that much.
Mhm.
But all the more to like really take stock in your assets. Because if every team's kind of going through the same bumpy road in the middle right now, then it's all going to shake itself out come playoffs. And this actually might be the most competitive playoffs, if this is the same case, that we've seen in a long time. Like, yeah, okay, we're going to have like the Celtics dominating, Bucks dominating. Those two are pretty much guaranteed. I like the Cavs, but I'm not 100% sold on them. And Nets were literally, I think at one point, like ninth in the league.
Nets are a week to week team to me.
They are definitely
like something will
questionable.
come up. Yeah,
their status as a team.
Yeah, they're listed as questionable for me, and they are in a top 4 spot right now.
Yeah,
I think after Boston and Milwaukee, you could tell me anything goes for the rest of the teams, and I would believe you.
yeah,
Right? Like
yeah,
I wouldn't
literally.
be surprised. You could tell me any of those
Yeah.
teams right now, like even the Sixers, like even the Cavs, like if they were to fall into the play-in, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
That's how
nothing
bunched the
is
standings are.
shocking. Exactly.
That's how bunched the standings are.
So
right
it's
now.
like, so do you make a knee jerk move this season, knowing that though?
Yeah. I will say I think the fans are really thirsty for the front office to make moves.
I'm like,
and the
who?
unfortunate news is that
Who
the
for
front,
what?
But the other thing is this front office is going to be way more patient
Yeah.
than the fan base I think wants it to be.
Well, it's funny. That's also a big market problem.
Yeah. I hope to be wrong. Maybe we'll come
That's
in
a big
tomorrow and
market
talk about
problem.
a trade. Yeah, I don't know.
If a trade ever happens,
No.
I'm listening.
I don't know.
Get me on the react.
But anyways, let's take a break here, and then when we come back, have some other topics to ask you about, including these new NBA awards
Yeah.
with new names and all of this stuff, and a couple other things. So I'm your host, Alex Wong. You're listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Alex Wong. Continue to be joined by Savannah Hamilton. Savannah, you had a shout out you wanted to give?
Yeah, shout out to my little brother. His name is Daniel.
Sup, Dan? Do you call him Dan or Daniel?
No, we just call him Daniel.
Okay, sorry. What's up, Daniel?
Yeah,
Hamilton.
It was his first game. Yeah, right. It was his first Raptors game last night. Unfortunately, he watched the loss, but he said that it was really exciting. So
that's awesome.
I'm proud of him.
Couldn't even buy him an alcoholic beverage, I heard.
No, he's 18 years old.
Okay.
First year student at OCAD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He's killing it.
All right. Let's see his grades then. Oh no, I'm just kidding.
We don't talk about that.
Hey, did you see Mike Brown and most of the Sacramento Kings coaching staff?
Asian dad.
Oh, here comes Brandale, man. Brandale was lurking in the first half. He's like, let's see if Alex can actually talk basketball for 25 minutes.
I know, right?
Did you notice the Kings coaching staff, including Mike Brown? He plays his elevator music when I kill time.
Wow.
Did you notice they were wearing Vans?
I did not notice that, no.
Oh, well, I noticed because Mike Brown ran to the court to get
I saw
ejected.
that. So, okay, do we know what that was exactly over?
I think he was arguing over a call on De'Aaron Fox.
Okay.
And then what happened was De'Aaron Fox picked up a technical.
Yeah, I did
and
see
that's
that.
when Mike Brown came out to argue that as well.
Oh,
that's why Fred
that's when
shot.
he came on the court.
That's why
running.
Fred shot 3 free throws after, right? Because 2 for Mike Brown and 1 for De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to be the difference in the game. Because that's how the Raptors can get a 3-pointer right now. 3 decks.
Listen, I was thinking about that too. You could say it.
Anyways, yeah. I can say whatever I want, or can I? Anyways, what else? Play the elevator
What is
music.
freedom of speech?
Brandale, hit me with that elevator music. So we were in the media room yesterday. Nice little crew. Oren Weisfeld, Will Lewis, Sampson.
Oh, yeah, good people.
I think Eric Koreen was there as well.
Better
we get into all kinds of random discussions before the game. And one of the things I tossed out was, how much in terms of number of wins do you think a pro basketball coach, an NBA head coach, adds to an NBA team? Because my thought was, what if 10 media members coached the Raptors versus an actual coach, say Nick Nurse? Do you think that's a 30-win, difference? A 40-win difference? 50?
So you're basically saying if the Raptors had no coach, how would they still win?
but like, these are great basketball minds. I'm talking Savannah Hamilton. Talking Eric Koreen. I'm talking Oren Weisfeld, Sampson, Will Lou. I'll be there too,
So,
just chilling.
My dad.
Yeah,
we'll
that's a
take
good
the
question.
egos out of the equation maybe on this conversation because that's a whole.
Yeah.
If Steve Nash couldn't control that situation.
Listen, this is my proposal. My proposal at the end was, I think in all 30 NBA cities, during the preseason, they should allow 5 to 10 media members to coach a preseason game, just to humble them a little bit, just for them to
humble the media members.
Yeah, just for the media members to appreciate what coaches really do. Because the discussion went into it's not just coaching in game. You got to build relationships with the players. Development, all that stuff. But it's also if we're all media members, who's drawing that play? Who's drawing that last play last night when we need a 3?
It's gonna sound crazy. I
think it'd be you. Yeah.
Honestly, I would trust myself to draw a last play. We had some really, and I would steal a little bit of the playbook from my university coach, Carly Clark, because she had some really sick end of game plays where we always had a wide open look. So that's a Canadian national team coach for you though. She would drop this play that would literally, it would be screen, blah, 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 all this action. And then wide open layup going on the backside of the rim. And what the inbounder would do would just literally lob it up. And this is women's basketball. So, we don't jump as crazy high sometimes, but they just lob it up in the air, catch it, and literally alley-oop a layup in.
Wow.
Off a backside. And you would never see it coming. Yeah. And it worked 3 times. We won games like that.
That's what I'm saying. Let's try that in a preseason game.
Skipping the pass to Sorry, I'm going on my ramble right now. You got me all excited about plays. Maybe I should have been a coach. What am I doing in the media?
That's what I'm saying.
No, but
no one likes the media.
Who would be the head coach? Because we always talk about, if media members played against each other, who would we draft?
Well, I don't want to disrespect you because you're filling in here for Will, but I want to see Will. I want to see Will be the head coach for one game.
Listen,
I
I'd
want
be
to
very
see
curious to see. I'd be curious to see that too.
He would actually be Chinese Nick Nurse. Chinese Nick Nurse.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I want to see him yell at the
comments.
refs.
I'm not trying to get canceled today.
Yeah, stay out of this. But yeah, like I would want to see Will on the sidelines.
I would like to see Will too.
In a Puma tracksuit or something because they're dressed all casual.
We need to Photoshop that. I want to see that.
Yeah, I believe those Photoshops are already out there.
Face on top of nurse's face. Yeah. I want to see Will in a press, like an oppressor.
Yeah.
I want to see us grilling him.
Yeah, I think that'd be sick.
So why are you in a shooting slump, Will?
Yeah. No, straight up.
It?
I think it'd be super cool. That's all I'm saying. All right, that was cool. 5 minutes there. Good job, Alex. The NBA recently announced new names and trophies for their major individual awards. So the MVP is now the Michael Jordan Trophy. Defensive Player of the Year is the Hakeem Olajuwon Trophy. Rookie of the Year is named after Wilt Chamberlain. Sixth Man of the Year after my favorite player, John Havlicek. Most Improved after your favorite player, George Mikan. And new Clutch Player of the Year is the Jerry West Trophy.
Their names are.
Yo, Derek's on fire this segment.
real.
What do you make of these names? How do you feel about the renaming of the trophies?
I'm actually surprised they didn't do it sooner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's a nice little update.
It's an update.
It's like an iOS update to like your phone and stuff. You know? I would have liked, and this is no disrespect. Like, come on, like I clearly didn't watch Wilt.
Yeah.
Didn't watch John Havlicek, George Mikan.
Can't say I've seen too much Mikan, even though he's my favorite player.
Yeah, like I know their contributions and importance to the game.
Yeah.
But I think if the goal was to maybe make this more relatable to the modern day basketball audience, I feel like they could have jumped it a little bit more too with more like recent players. Like naming it after more recent players.
No, I'm actually pretty happy with the players that they chose. That's a good take, though. I mean, I hear what you're saying.
You're like, that's a good take.
That's a nice take.
But not for me.
Not for me. Because I just remember, especially with like the Mikan, when I heard George Mikan in particular, like especially for Most Improved, I was like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense because as a post player, how do you improve your touch around the rim? You do the Mikan drill for like an hour a day. And there's you can do reverse Mikans, you do like regular Mikans. It's like, you do that.
The argument too, I think it was Zach Lowe who mentioned this on his podcast, was like when you do get to update it again, like a Most Improved could be Giannis, right? But he's a current player right now.
I can't think like that because that's going to make me feel old because like when they update it again, it's going to be like 50 years from now. I'm going to be like in my 70s and be
the
like.
The award to the player who plays one game.
Giving it to Steph Curry.
The award to the player who plays one game a month, the Kawhi Leonard Award. Yeah. The player for drawing the most charges, the Kyle Lowry Award.
The players for like ref call reacts.
Yeah. I like that too.
Reacts.
No, I like that too.
Shocked in a Fool Award.
Friend of the program, Dana Smart suggested that they need a Got That Dog in Him award.
Oh.
Yeah. That's like a PJ Tucker type award.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So I think that's a good one as well. Dana. So, but overall, you're happy. You're happy with the John Havlicek.
Who gets the dog in him?
Trophy.
Like, PJ Tucker.
I think it should be maybe
Beverly?
Named after someone like a PJ Tucker.
Okay.
I don't know. Or a Marcus Smart.
Marcus Smart. You gotta get the bad boys in the league.
Yeah. I think that'd be cool. But all right, cool awards. Congrats.
Michael Jordan MVP award, eh?
I'm down with that.
That makes sense, obviously, to me because I think he's the best player ever.
Plus, they got these like new trophies. They like redesigned all of them. Like it looks super cool.
They added the clutch player.
Oh yeah, so the Clutch Player of the Year, which probably my least favorite conversation. In basketball when people just talk about who's clutch or who's not. But I guess. But
they almost should have. They should have called that the Kobe Bryant Award.
Yeah, but the criteria too is not just because I think when people think of clutch, obviously it's like late game shots and all that stuff. But they were saying like clutch on the defensive end as well and stuff, which is it's gonna be tough.
Yay.
Well, media members are actually gonna vote on this, so it's gonna be pretty interesting.
I'm glad we do.
Because like, who's the first player that you think of when you think of clutch? I think of like Dame Lillard.
Yeah, that's easy. But he's like long overdue for that award.
Yeah.
That would be like here's for all the years you've been clutch. Not like even if you have a bad clutch season this season, it's not about that. It's about like your entire career.
No, I think
and being a meme for being clutch.
No, I think that's fair. And again, when they update it in like 20 years, I think maybe Dame will be named.
I'm just trying to think who else too.
Yeah.
There's a few names. Like I'm thinking.
Yeah, you can think of Steph too as well.
Steph for sure.
Someone like that, right? Yeah. So Yeah, shouts to the NBA for the new trophies. The other thing I wanted to ask you about too is, we talked about the parity earlier, and this was another conversation that came up in the media room. Thank God I was listening yesterday, so I could have some
Wow.
topics today.
No kidding.
And we're just trying to figure out who the favorite is in the Western Conference right now. Because,
Mm.
you look at the standings, and the New Orleans Pelicans and the Memphis Grizzlies are tied
Weird.
at the top.
Yeah.
And then, within the top six, you've got Denver, Portland, Phoenix, and the Clippers. But then you look at a team like the Suns, they've lost 6 of their last 7. And then 3 teams that I think before the season you would have expected maybe competing for a top 4 spot.
Mm-hmm.
The Clippers are in a play-in spot right now, and we know all about their, on and off injuries. Dallas is like running Luka into the ground
Yep.
and not really getting the results that they want. And they obviously lost Jalen Brunson.
Yep.
The Golden State Warriors, the defending champions, are somehow 12-2 at home, but 2-13 on the road.
Yeah.
They'll be here on Sunday, and Steph's got an injury. Minnesota was another popular pick coming into the season after
The Warriors
trading.
have like the Raptors record.
Yeah, Minnesota was a popular pick coming into the season after acquiring Rudy Gobert, and they're 13-14 right now.
Yep.
So I've listed like 9-10 teams. If you were to pick right now, who are you picking as the team to come out of the West?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, this is a very tough conversation to have because we think the East is a mess, and then you just look at the West and you're like, wait, what? Listen, the Pelicans, watching Zion Williams like up close, it's one thing to see him on TV. Yeah, he looks like a big guy. He is huge. Like he
All right,
walked,
you were in New Orleans.
I was
right?
in New Orleans.
Yeah.
He walked right past me, just running to the court to put some shots or whatever. And I was like, okay, not only is he really tall, this guy is just really, really built. And people think that it's, not a healthy weight. No, he's gotten himself to a point where like he can move. And that's kind of the only thing that matters in basketball, right? So I don't see the Pelicans coming out of the West, though, with that being said. I think that Zion, we're just beginning to see the Zion era emerge. I'll say that. I almost would not be surprised if we see the Grizzlies coming out of the West. I'm really processing this. I'm like, the Trailblazers are 4th right too. I was like, okay.
No, it's hard. It's hard to pick because
It's really hard to pick.
there's a lot of surprise
Suns,
teams.
I feel like there's too much internal crap
I think
happening.
the Suns would need to make a move.
They need to make
Especially look at how Chris Paul's been playing this year, and
Exactly.
Devin Booker's been incredible.
Yeah.
But I think if they were, they've got Jay Crowder sitting at home. I don't know what they're going to get for him, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's going to be the upgrade that's going to put them over the
It's
top.
not. It's not going to move the needle. That's why
Right.
I'm like looking at this. I'm like, I think the most consistent team with the most talent and the best health right now too is between the Grizzlies and the Nuggets. Like, I think if you're looking at in terms of like who's going to make it like to end of season and have consistent performances throughout the playoffs, I'm not putting my money right now on Jazz, who happens to be number 8, or
No, I think Utah's going to
Dallas.
fall out.
No, exactly. I think the conversations between the Grizzlies and the Nuggets, because Nuggets, don't forget, they got back Jamal Murray. He's still coming back a little bit, but like they got some assets again back. But yeah, no, I don't know about I don't. It's the wild west right now.
No, the West is wide open, and I can't. I guess the last couple of years too. Last year I know there were a couple of contenders in the Western Conference too, but it's been a while where it's been a while since it's felt this wide open.
Holy.
And I don't know. I did pick the Clippers before the season,
Yeah.
and I guess I'll just stick with them. I feel like they'll be there in the end.
Are you sure?
I know I'm betting a lot on Kawhi's health, but
You are.
Kawhi's never let me down.
Clippers.
So-
He's never let you down, eh?
The one time he was here in town, he didn't let me down. So
What? Go on.
yeah,
What?
when he won the championship.
Okay.
You thought there was gonna be a
I
personal
thought this was
story.
a personal story, like like the ramen noodles with Utah, like that
no,
was a bit of a letdown.
Oh man, even Savannah knows about this ramen.
Come
noodle.
on, we all know about it.
Still trying to make that happen. Utah's in town. Utah's probably in Toronto right now because they're playing
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Why don't you have him as a dad? Why do you have me on? You should get Utah on.
Well, maybe Will can get over his sickness and just go hang out with Utah. Imagine if Utah was out with a non-COVID.
Maybe that's
we
why
can't
he's
talk
not
about
here right now. Actually, maybe he's just hanging out with Utah right now.
I don't know, but I
Wish
think
we
it's
get ramen, the three of us.
I think it's hard to pick. Like depending on injuries too. Like I still really like the Warriors, but the Warriors feel like another team that needs to make a move.
Yeah.
Right. I think their starting lineup is really good. They have a pretty good I want to say top 6, but
Well, they have a top 6. We're talking about
they
a
have a top
Raptors
6.
We're talking about our Raptors. Do you see the parody in this conversation? We're just coming off a segment. We're just talking straight
Okay, but
Raptors.
there's no Steph Curry on this team, though. Let's be clear about that.
We don't have a top 6. Okay, we were talking about our core 4.
I know, but I'm saying.
Listen, all I can say is never sleep on the Warriors, no matter how not great they're doing in the regular season.
It's going to be hard to
never
beat
sleep on
them in a 7-game series if they're fully healthy, is all I'm saying.
Exactly, because they could just turn it on at any point. Like, they still have everybody. And they're just, I think, a part of it, I don't know if they're the healthiest team in the books right now. But once they do get healthy, and, I think they might start peaking towards end of season, and then nobody wants to see them in the first round. Nobody wants to see them. Nobody wants to see them, period.
Nobody wants to see the Clippers. And I don't think even if
I don't know if that's
true. I'm sticking with my guy Kawhi.
Nobody wants to see the Clippers.
And even with the Mavericks, too. I don't think anybody wants to see Luka in a 7-game series. We've seen what he can do.
Yeah, no,
right?
Luka is dangerous.
Dallas is not winning 4 rounds.
He doesn't have enough pieces built around him. That's why I wouldn't mind seeing him.
Yeah, but he's not going to win 4 rounds. But if you see Luka in the first round, he could get your team.
He will get your team in the first round.
He could get that.
The conversation with Luka is not if he's going to get your team in the first round. Is he going to get your team in the second?
Yeah. No, I don't think that's happening for this
or
team.
The final, the conference final. Yeah, because he's not gonna get you out of a conference final.
Well, I'm sticking with the Clippers then.
All right.
Yeah, you seem very skeptical about that.
Skeptical. I'm gonna go sideways and I'm gonna say, oh gosh, I'm this makes me nervous. But the Grizzlies.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be a super fun story.
Yeah.
That would be a super fun story.
I feel a little anxiety on that one.
Yeah.
But
well, listen, Savannah, we made it. Appreciate you joining me in studio today.
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah. Was it? Yes. It definitely, the hour flew by. Get well soon, Will. That does it for us for today. I'm your host, Alex Wong. You've been listening to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe and please rate and review. Thanks again to Savannah, to myself, to board producer Derek Brandeo, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us with the YouTube stream. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Wow.
We miss you, Will.
Feels good, man.